Hi, welcome to Sue Marie P. My name's Sue. This is my kitchen in Gothenburg in Sweden. I'm an Aussie and I like sharing recipes to the world, and I love baking with spelt flour. Recently one of my viewers said, do you have a white bread spelt loaf recipe? And I thought, I don't think I do. Anyway, I've been experimenting and I've realised that my spelt bun recipe, which I'll pop a link up above, is easily converted into a loaf bread, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. First step is we've got some warm water here, that's 50 mils, and I'm just going to add 10.5 grams into that, and that's about 3 1/4 teaspoons. This is a dry yeast, and in Sweden they have a lot of fresh yeast, so I've also tried this with 25 grams of fresh yeast. If you have fast active yeast, you don't need to put it in the water straight away, but it's also a good way just to check that your yeast is active. So we'll just let that sit there, and I'll do it in my large KitchenAid bowl today. In here I've got 500 grams of white spelt flour, and you might think, Sue, why are you giving me grams? I'm in the US, I can only do ounces. I'll pop some conversions above. I always write in above, but I also have a link to my website where all the recipes there. I will put some cup measurements, but I highly recommend using scales because then you'll have more consistent results each time you bake a bread, because cup sizes are different all over the world. A teaspoon of sugar, that's optional, you can leave it out if you don't want it, and a teaspoon of salt. And I just realised that sometimes I put the sugar into the yeast to help activate it, but I didn't today, but it should be fine for this recipe. And I'm just going to whisk those a little bit. Just going to wait 5 more minutes till that yeast activates, and then we'll do the next step. So my yeast is quite bubbly, so I'm going to pour that in. And in my little jug here, I've got soy milk, which I've warmed up for 40 seconds in the microwave. So it's just lukewarm to touch. In there, I'm going to add an egg yolk. And I'm using the white for glazing. I did try a version of this without the milk and the egg, and I found that when you make it with the milk and the egg, it becomes a bit more moist and it stays fresher for a few more days. So I'm going to pour that in. And in here, I have 2 tablespoons of olive oil, and that also just helps with the moisture and richness. If you don't have a stand mixer, you can do it by hand. It just takes a bit longer. This just helps me knead it, and I'll knead it for about 5 minutes. Spelt flour doesn't require as much kneading as regular white flour. And I like to swap it out into another medium-sized bowl, which I've just greased with a little bit of oil, so that's ready to go. And I have a silicone lid on standby too. Just increase the speed slightly. I'm going to stop that. I've got about 1 1/4 to go, but it looks pretty good, and my bowl's really clean, so I'll just stop my timer. I'm just going to wet my hands with a bit of water, and I remove the dough. So look how good that looks. Now I'm going to rest my dough for about an hour or 60 minutes until it doubles in size. I know when it's doubled in size because it reaches the top of this bowl. And then we'll come back and we'll shape it to put into our tin. So while you're waiting for your dough, grab a small loaf tin. I've just greased it with a little bit of butter. You can use oil. And then I like putting paper in it, but it's not necessary. I just do that so it's easy to lift out. So get that ready, and then you'll be able to pop it into the tin straight away. Our hour is up, and check out my dough. The cover is like bubbling over. So now it's time to form it. So all I do is I add a little bit of rice flour to the bench. I tend to use that because it's a bit finer than the spelt flour and a bit cheaper. And then I take my dough out. Just add some flour to the top. I'm just knocking some of the air out. I kind of make a loose rectangle shape, and then I just fold it. So I bring the top layer over, and then the one that's closest to me over, and then I kind of fold the sides over and kind of form some kind of log shape. It doesn't really matter if it's not perfect. that's kind of how mine looks. And then I pop it in my tin that I've prepared. Just knocked it as I put it in. Pop it into that. And then I let it sit here on the bench for another 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. But I'm going to cover it with a bit of plastic as well, just so it gets to double in size. And what you'll find when we come back, that this will spread into the tin. So just so, I've got a little bit of plastic, just so it doesn't stick to the top of the dough, I'm going to just pop a little bit of oil. And if you didn't want to use plastic, you can use a damp cloth, but I find I prefer this way. And I'll just put my cloth over it as well. And I'll set my timer for 45 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll do the last step before we pop it in the oven. So about 10 minutes ago, I popped my oven onto 220 degrees fan, and you might think that is really hot, but this is my new way of doing bread. I'm going to cook it for 10 minutes on high and then drop it back to 200. So look at that. As I promised, it's spread into the tin, so it's nice and ready. So now we're going to quickly just gently brush on some egg wash. And if you didn't want to put the egg wash on, you can do water or a little bit of oil, but the egg wash just gives it a nice brown colour. I like to add some sesame seeds just because it looks pretty. Not necessary, but it does make it look like a store-bought loaf. And the other little thing I do is just put a few cuts into the top of the bread. I'm just going to do like a little V pattern. Now we're ready to bake it. As I said, 220 for 10 minutes and then drop it back to 200. And I'll pop the Fahrenheit temperatures above, and I pop a little ramekin of cold water to the base of my oven, and that just helps with the steam and helps it puff up and rise. So my white spelt loaf's been baked, and check this out. Look how good that looks. I'm going to cut into it so I can show you what it looks like on the inside. I've been cutting it in the middle lately. I find it easier to cut it, and then if you need to store some in the freezer, you could slice it and pop it in the freezer. But look at that. I just zoomed you in. I've got steam still coming off it. I probably cut it a bit too early. I left it here for about 20 minutes. Did I say that before? So it's nice and fluffy. And for those that like fluffy white bread, but you're looking for an alternative like spelt flour, check out this recipe, give it a go. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Hit the thumbs up if you've liked this video, share it with a friend. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here today. And if you'd like to keep supporting my channel, you can pop a donation down below. There's a super thanks where you can donate via YouTube, or I've also got a PayPal link where you can add a little donation there. Every little bit helps, and this is my full-time job. I don't have any other work or any other income, but I just do this for free to share my videos and recipes with the world. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Yum, yum, yum.